All right, welcome everybody. This is the Let's Taco About It podcast with Chef Dom, the podcast that aims to break down the wall between the consumer and the passionate people who aim to please them. Every week I'll be interviewing another chef from my hometown of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and at the end of each episode, we will make a one-of-a-kind taco that represents my guests and their passion. Today I'm featuring good buddy of mine, chef that I highly respect out here in Albuquerque, Chef Tony Saccoccia.
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 Yes, sir.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
No problem. Hey, I've met like two people in my whole life that ever said it right on the first try. So don't worry about it.
And right now on camera, you're looking like a little shorter than me, but
I had trouble getting my foot to touch the chair spins really.
I rigged the chair for him over here, so we could be the same height. But this guy's huge. He's a lengthy one. Anyways, Tony, why don't you let everybody know a little bit about yourself?
Oh yeah. Name's Tony Saccoccia. I'm currently the chef at the Indigo Cafe in Corrales, New Mexico. I've been cooking for just under 15 years. School of Hard Knocks guy. Okay. My story is pretty much I originally wanted to be the GM of a golf course.
Oh, nice.
Front of the house stuff. I just always looked at a golf course being a leisurely environment. I just had this very not well thought out idea about managing a golf course, and to this day I've never even played. So yeah, it was kind of
nice. Well, I mean that's great. That's part of that's one step is to manifesting
sure.
it is to envision it. And you envision yourself as GM of a golf course.
Right. Yeah. So I mean I ended up taking a program at what was called TVI at the time. It's CNM now. It was a hospitality and tourism course, or a program for associate's degree. And when I first started going to school, I told myself I wanted to work in the industry,
right?
And then hopefully kind of have a parallel path between my experience and what I was learning in school, and then maybe meet at the end. So
right.
I didn't end up being one of these people that had a piece of paper and telling people to do things I didn't know how to do and hadn't done myself.
Right.
Just these ideas I had and everything. So, I ended up taking a real bottom level position at a hotel as a dishwasher.
Oh, okay.
I guess as far as cooking goes, I got what I would consider some natural ability. Lots of people in my family cook. My mom was a private cook.
Right.
My brother cooks. My grandfather, who actually inspired me to cook, was a professional cook. I guess I maybe had that sort of gravity going on, right?
Right.
And so, I was washing dishes at this place. And it was a short order kitchen, and the spaghetti and meatballs, Alfredo that was already made for the whole week on Sunday, and
right.
Putting pepperonis on pizzas and things like that, and it was just me and a cook every night. So I got lots of exposure to what he did every night, and even ended up helping him sometimes. Just simple things like, hey, go warm up the white sauce in the bag, and put the pepperonis on the pizza. And, doing that, like I said, I had somewhat of a knack for it, I guess. And this guy got fired one night, man. And they were just like, hey, you. So,
Get in there, kid.
Yeah, man. It really was that. And I had learned the menu up to that point. And for a year, dude, I cooked and washed my own dishes for the wage that I was making as a dishwasher.
Wow.
Before they even gave me the cook's wage.
Right.
So, I guess you could say I got a small amount of chops doing that. But either way, it was just kind of this foot in the door of cooking that I didn't even realize I liked doing. And about a year of doing that, I actually put in an application at the Hyatt Tamaya, right, with Chef Cheryl Scamaberry.
Oh,
yeah, man. And, I don't know if she thought I was a culinary student or what, but she decided to give me a crack. And as a cook too, no less.
Oh, wow.
And so, I showed up there, and my first day, she was like, so you mean to tell me you're a culinary student and you don't have your own set of knives? And I feel like, to this day, I feel like the wrong answer would have been, well, I'm not a culinary student. But, I was just like, oh, shoot, I'll bring them tomorrow.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I think actually my younger brother was in culinary school at the time, and he had an extra set of knives. So, lo and behold, the next day I showed up with some knives, man, and true story. I honestly faked it a bit till I made it over there, and I showed up there with Raul.
Yeah.
Raul was working at Corn Maiden. Another friend of ours, Aaron Spring, was in the Santa Ana Cafe, and man, I showed up there hardly knowing how to hold a knife and everything like that. And Hard Knocks with Chef Mike Percio, gosh, who else do we have? Rodney Ashley.
Yeah.
You know, the couple of guys that are still around today, and you know, I faked it till I made it there and left there. About 2 years later, one of their better cooks, and one of the guys that was leaving there was opening up this new spot. That there was going to be this real chic steakhouse and everything like that, and you know, it was a chance to move up a little bit in pay and everything like that. Because that was the thing I hated about working at the Hyatt, was they don't ever want to pay me nothing.
I think I remember talking to your brother, and you both went to go work at that steakhouse or whatever together. Yeah. You opened it up together or something, right?
But a buddy of mine, Brad, had partnered up with you know, these two guys in town. That huge place, man. I think it was like a $4 million building or something. It still sits there, but you know, this really huge concept and everything, and you know, it ended up not working out. I feel like it was something that wasn't really tailored for Albuquerque, both business and consumer wise. You know, people don't eat $140 steaks out here all that often.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a hard thing, is like finding the balance between like your dream passion and then the market.
Sure.
You know, like you gotta still make your rent and make a profit off it. It's a business. It's a business at the end of the day. I think that's one of the reasons why I fell in love with small scale. You know, and like what I got here with Dia de los Tacos, and yeah, it's just something I'm used to. Just something that I can control some of those variables. You know, like you know, like hiring on employees and training them and stuff like that. To run a massive restaurant, you know, it's hard to do. You know, I mean, it's really you could do some amazing stuff with that, but there is a lot of headache in doing it, you know, and so I like that small scale where it's just more intimate and those headaches can be a little more controlled.
Yeah, I mean, I think even on a smaller scale, like when it comes to menu, you know, I think as a chef, a lot of times when we get that opportunity, we want to, you know, boast our culinary prowess and be as creative as we can be, and you know, and a lot of times we forget how it all works, and the fact that 9 out of 10 times we're not even the one executing this food, and you know, and then secondly, who are we selling this to, right? And yeah, you know, it's great to you know, pull out the tweezers and make all this really fantastic, expensive food, but then again, who are we selling it to, and are we going to even be able to sell it? You know, and so, you know, this place, the steakhouse didn't really make it and everything, but you know, through this entire time, I'm still learning everything, and to this day, I consider myself the difference between a culinary grad and a hard knocks guy like myself is I don't know anybody any money. You know? And I made money learning what I know today, and you know, so this process has been ongoing. And I left there, and actually did a stint working in some of the casinos around town.
Okay.
Which you know, is another good experience and everything like that. I feel like the difference between your bigger properties like that and your smaller operations is, you know, just the closeness you have to all the creative process and all the management sorts of things.
Oh yeah.
You know, you work in a some of these bigger operations, you got 10 bosses and you got to answer to everybody, and you know, especially with menu development, you know, it's this big, what could be a bureaucratic process sometimes. Whereas, you know, in a smaller operation, you answer to less people to make happy in the business side of things. Yeah. Right. And then, you know, on the guest side of things, you have more access to the people that you are actually, you know, keeping you in business.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know,
and I feel like in doing that, you get more in touch with what they want, and you get better at making these menus. Right. And if you're going into business, figuring out how to make a business that these people are going to like because you're so acquainted with them already. Absolutely. You know, and you get that a lot more on the smaller level than you do on you know, working in these bigger operations where you don't even get much exposure.
Sometimes, like I put it one way, is sometimes that's the fulfillment that you need at the end of the day is to see that guest happy and smile. You know, I mean, there was times, you know, I opened up a whiskey, you know, up on and so, you know, I came from running a sushi bar, you know, and having that guest interaction, and then to go, and you know, that kitchen was not a show kitchen, so you were just in there in the back. Yeah. But I do remember that there were some days where some guests, they were just really just so happy with their meal that they came back to the kitchen, you know, and actually thanked us, you know, and shook our hands, handed us all $20 bills or whatever, you know, and that really just like helped motivate you to get through to the next day, you know. Like I think it's Chef Mark Quinones, he put it, enduring, you know, and sometimes you need that that encouragement to get through one day and get on to the next. Because it is just a constant, repetition.
Well, it's not necessarily a very rewarding profession in a lot of ways.
Exactly.
You know, like you're speaking of working in the back of the house kitchen. I feel fortunate where I'm at right now that I have kind of a semi-open kitchen, right? There's a little bit of a window and everything. And what the opportunity that gives me is I get to see people's reaction to food a lot. You know, and without necessarily them sitting at the bar and watching everything I do and creating that sort of environment, I still get to, we operate like your true back of the house, but we just get that window, and even when I bring on new people, I tell them, one of the only rewards you're going to get here in this place right now is when you make something, you send it out. Watch them, see where it goes, and if you can see the guests, watch them take that first bite. And I swear to you that's your reward. We don't get paid extremely well. You just generally don't find yourself getting patted on the back a lot of times by management or anyone else, and learning to recognize those rewards early on is what's going to be endearing to you to keep doing it for a living, because at the end of the day, it's stressful, it's tough, it's mentally and physically.
Just shut it off, like we're constantly in like restaurant mode, and it's
how much time do we spend there?
I know, right? I thought it was funny. I think on Facebook a while back, there was a thing where, one of those copy this, post it or whatever. It was something like, comment with the picture that you feel represents me or whatever.
Right.
And so I did it. And sure enough, all the pictures that I got were all food. Like people just posted pictures of the food. I'm like, damn, that's all I am. But for myself, I feel like I'm much more than that. But and my coworkers were the ones who actually saw that side more of who I am. And so that goes into just talking about like the family aspect of like our job and how important it is to have just a nice cohesive kind of family type environment with your coworkers.
Well, and once again, the amount of time you spend there. I tell people I work with constantly, I consider you guys family. And when I say that, I spend more time with you than I do my actual family. B, just like family, I may not necessarily even like some of you. but we all got to coexist, right? And we just like family, we all are just there together all the time, and we all have these common goals, and you kind of just build this bond with people by, if nothing else, by being with them so often.
Absolutely.
And there's a camaraderie that you build, and sometimes friendship, and just it's a bond that you carry, throughout your entire career and even your life. I know sometimes, at these food fights and other things, I run into a lot of these acquaintances that we all share, and true, honest to God, man, I forget how I know everybody. It's almost like I feel like at some point we all worked in this one kitchen together, man. Which I get, Albuquerque, you know what I mean? And I like that because I feel like that just means there's this like fluidity of I don't know, tiring.
Just taxing.
For lack of a better way to put it.
It takes a toll on your whole body, and your mind as well, which affects you and outside of the restaurant. It's hard for us to just
passion and knowledge and interests and even the direction we all go with our food, I feel like isn't too far off from each other.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that it's what I really enjoy about like the food fights, which Chef Mike White, was putting together. And, shout out to Chef Mike. He's doing an amazing job setting those up. I know that guy he's just constantly working, constantly creating, constantly doing some amazing stuff with the community. So I'm hoping to get him on the podcast here soon. But, the environment at these food fights, it's almost like a unspoken kind of respect, between all the chefs or whatever. And we don't need to explain the day that we just had. We all know that what the day that we all just had or whatever. We can finally just enjoy the moment. You know what I mean? And then just like collaborate and talk about ideas or whatever, and maybe like build on those ideas together.
Absolutely.
And
so some of those relationships you form networking like that could be the most valuable ones you make.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether even speaking from a business perspective or obviously a personal one. I think a lot of times we kind of watch the Food Network and everything, and I feel like a lot of us have aspirations to want to be on there and do a lot of things we see the chefs on there do. And what we don't see on there is the everyday grind of what us, working chefs do. And I think that's what we recognize in each other when we see each other at these events is everybody's a little bit hosed, and a lot of us just literally got off a shift. And, I feel like that's why these things start at like 9, 10 o'clock at night sometimes is, that's the only time you can nail any of us down. And I think those things are really important. And it's those same types of relationships that have helped carry me through my career. I was fortunate to get to, have some good chefs take me under their wing early on and show me the path, even on lots of different levels of everything from, even culinary direction with the food itself to, how to just get through a situation or two, or some of the best gigs you get are through word of mouth. You know what I mean? You don't find them on Craigslist. It's a chef that you respect, that's reputable, has a spot open, and you find out about it somehow before anyone else because he knows who you are, and there's a mutual respect there. Right. A lot of I feel like most desirable positions get filled that way.
Yeah. I think another thing, you spoke about the money is never really that great. That's not why we're in it. It's sometimes it's that guest interaction or appreciation from the guest that helps us, or it's understanding of all the skill and the tools that you're adding to your toolkit. I know that was kind of my path, is that I kind of became like a journeyman of just going and working in different kitchens, but with the intent of gathering knowledge, taking in all this skill, all this knowledge or whatever, because I'm like looking over at the chefs that I'm working with, and the chefs that I'm working under of, what they're doing and kind of like that. But what I do see nowadays is as I've brought up chefs under me, is sometimes the younger generation, maybe they're just a little too excited about getting to this point without understanding of all the hard work or what it takes actually to get there. Like, it's about showing up every day.
Absolutely.
And then that the lessons are kind of hidden inside of the work for the day. The lessons are everywhere. It's not just on a paper in front of you. And like, this is what you're going to learn today. It's like,
well, I think if you step in any kitchen, right, and I think as a chef, you always have an appreciation for your most rounded guys, right? Your roundsmen, and that's one thing I preach constantly is, make yourself as valuable as possible, right? And I feel like you're more well served in a kitchen being, really being knowledgeable and able to do lots of different things rather than specializing right away, and especially at a young spot in your career where, you want to take off with a certain ethnicity of food or, a certain style of food as opposed to, getting your chops in different styles of restaurants. I know, myself, I kind of pride myself in being able to throw down in a really casual burger spot or, a nicer high-end fine dining spot. And I feel like I wouldn't be able to do that had I just worked in one of those types of places, absolutely, right? I feel like the best thing I have to offer is my experience. And even when I have, once again being a hard knocks guy, what I offer my cooks is, I don't always know the French term for something, right? I a lot of times the things that I've learned, I don't even realize I've learned, right? Because it's all been so hands on in things. But what I feel like I really offer to a younger cook is just a sort of wisdom that you only get with experience. That is literally irreplaceable with any amount of education. Absolutely. You know what I mean? Where, say 10, 15 years in a kitchen, there's just some situations where something you learned in a formal environment doesn't apply. And I mean, in regular service, how many times does that happen? No, it's exactly. Like, countless. And so I feel like as a chef, I'm really solid with the concepts of keeping your head on straight. You know what I mean? The mental organization that takes place and how it relates to, you tell people your brain looks like what your station looks like. And when your station's very clean, you're moving around, your movements are kind of clean. You look a little bit more fluid and sharp, and You know, as opposed to where you walk in a disaster and the person usually they have their chef coats hanging out and aprons sideways and
wiping stuff.
You know, they've gone through 18 boxes of gloves and they've got opened up stuff and you can just look on their face that that's exactly what it looks like upstairs too.
Oh yeah.
You know, and you know, yeah, I feel like those are all things that you only get learning doing it, and you know, I feel like as me personally, that's what I bring to the table the most is those sorts of nuances, the savvy, not necessarily a walking encyclopedia or not necessarily a culinary instructor.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so sometimes I feel like the people that thrive most in my kitchen are those that bring a good amount of culinary ability to the table, but also are just really impressionable.
Yeah.
Because I think, like, you know, I guess any business you want to bring, it's valuable to bring people on early in their development, because then you can kind of, you know, it's easier to instill certain things in them and coach them more.
You're not fixing bad habits. Yeah. You're not wasting so much time fixing bad habits, and that's
huge thing in our industry.
Yeah. Once you got an old dog who got so much bad habits, it's really hard to like just get that new information. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Like the people that I've enjoyed bringing up the most have been the ones with no experience, little to no experience.
Hungry.
You know, and just showing them. Yeah, and at the end of the day, somebody who just needs work, needs to get away from their life outside.
Right.
You know, like, I mean, I used to tell my young chefs, like, think of this almost like a home or like a church. Like, this is where we go to forget about all that, because all we got here is nothing but work. There's so much work to be done.
Sure.
You know, and so, like, get lost in this, because this we can manage. Once you walk out those doors, there's nothing.
Sure.
You have no control over anything, you know, and you know, that's often the hard part for the younger chefs to really understand. You know, is how important that is, just to keep showing up every day and just like fall in love with what's in front of you, fall in love with the sounds that are going on, fall in love with just that repetitive conversation that you have with the dish guy, you know, even if they speak very little English, you know, like.
Yeah, I mean, you know, understand all the different things that come with being a cook.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's you know, especially on a chef level. I mean, a lot of times you don't get to even work service anymore. You know what I mean? So much of your job is just managing personalities.
It's almost like a puppeteer.
Yeah,
like, you're just like, okay, now turn that off. Now flip that.
Exactly.
You're burning over here. Yeah.
Right.
And it's just like, it's a little more nerve wracking, but it's a different muscle that you're training.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. And you know, understanding all these different things that aren't just the food, because I feel like as any sort of professional culinarian, you kind of understand early on that it's a pretty basic skill set you need to even thrive at all in the business, you know, and you either got it or you don't. And I feel like the people that don't are weeded out very, very early on.
Yeah.
You know, and so with that being said, I feel like at a certain level, we can all cook, man. Yeah. You know what I mean? We all know how to cook, bro. Exactly. And even people on the lower levels, you know, that's just what we do every single day. Of course, we all know how to cook. It's understanding these other things, man, that are going to take you somewhere. You know what I mean? And you know, even just as a chef, I think it was Mark Quinones that told me one time, you have an obligation to cultivate talent, you know, and so I try to keep that in mind and you know, recognizing all the learning experiences, the ones that I had to recognize in my path, you know, and I've always felt like when that learning experience stops somewhere, that's when it's time to move on, you know, and that's kind of why my you look at my resume or just my story and you know, I've been a few places, a lot of different places, and you know, after the stint at the casinos, it was funny. I worked with this French chef there, right? His name was Philippe, I think, and you know, still very green and very young in my career. He was that like stereotypical chef, man. The dude had like a very thick French accent. He wore the floppy hat, like whole 9 yards, bro. And in the entire building, he was the one guy that came across as like what I remember thinking a chef was as a kid growing up, you know, and so with that being said, right or wrong, I kind of like looked up to this guy. I don't even think he knew, man. He was just like worked there, and you know, I would try to pick his brain and this and that. And I remember I asked him what his favorite restaurant in town was, and he told me it was the Artichoke Cafe. Oh. You know, and so right then and there. And once again, this guy could have been nobody. Really, he had a thick French accent. And so I was like, well, well, shoot, that's got to be the best restaurant in town. And furthermore, I want to work there, and I'm gonna make a goal for myself right there. That's where I want to work. And like short-term goals always being a little easier to grasp than the big dreams. Yeah, I ended up over there, man. I took a significant pay cut to do it. Those one of the other pros of these bigger properties is a lot of times they pay better. They've got a benefit plan and all these things.
And I know you have family. We got little Will.
Yeah, William. I got Willie and Lily.
Yeah, he's over here hanging out with us. But yeah, I mean, it's a little bit more. It's a little different when you have family that you need to provide for.
Sure.
And the corporate jobs or whatever where they keep you to a certain hours. And you have the team and you have the funding to do some of this stuff where you don't have to constantly be there.
And that really is the selling point of those places.
Absolutely.
Because they can be a little stifling in terms of creativity, right? You don't have the same liberties that you have in.
Very true.
When you work in a smaller spot as even just a line cook, you make a really fantastic special that day. You can walk it right into the owner's office if you want to, and they'd be like, "Ooh, and all of a sudden you're on someone's radar. And next time there's an opportunity available, they're like, "Hey, I remember that salmon dish so and so did, and let's take a look at him." It really does work that way.
Absolutely.
And those sorts of opportunities don't happen in the bigger properties. And I feel fortunate that I understood that at a younger age and was able to kind of like plan a path of learning that still continues today. And Artichoke Cafe, went from places where you didn't even prep your own station to walking in and just getting handed a prep list without even recipes.
Right.
And some guys would take you aside. You learn the ropes through. Some of the more senior cooks and everything, but at the end of the day, it was a completely different environment. All, lots of scratch cooking, and then developing your own specials. I remember specifically, they had a grill station there where you had to do a special every day and a salmon special every day. Salmon specifically. And, that was every single day on top of doing the prep for your station, and I just remember that was, I felt like that was really challenging. And when I felt like I got it, I really did feel like I had taken a step up in terms of what I brought to the table. And, I kind of plateaued out there, just in terms of what was going on. I mean, even when you develop to a certain point, that doesn't always mean there's a spot for you.
Yeah.
And when you could be in a restaurant and, you might be their best cook and you may have even in some ways outperformed their sous chef, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they already got a sous chef. Yeah. You know what I mean? And they're not going to fire him, and they shouldn't fire him to make you their sous chef. So, you move on.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the how it's worked out for me some places, and I had the opportunity of working with Rafael Zamora when he was here at Vintage for a little while. I worked with Mark Quinones at Bien Sure for a while. Actually, I worked with Mark at Route 66 for like 2 seconds,
really?
which that's that's years ago, man. And sometimes I forget that. You know what I mean? So my initial impressions of Mark actually come from there, and everything I talk about him in reference to is always Bien Sure. That's where he really blew up and everything like that. But once again, it's just this. You just have these constant entities in your life that are just influential to you, and
I think
you forget where they come from.
I've seen some of those old pictures of some of the group that Mark had over there at Ben Sure, and I think Raul was part of the team, right? With you.
Right. Me and him didn't end up there at the exact same time, but I was there with Alan for a second.
Yeah, there was but it seemed like there was just like a really powerhouse team that was there at one time, because they were head chefs in all their own respect.
Sure. Well, and to Mark's credit, it's kind of like basketball. I remember when all those guys first signed with the Miami Heat. You had LeBron and Dwayne D-Wade, and it was one thing to have all that talent on the team, but then everybody saw the struggle of Eric Spoelstra to kind of put it all together and actually make it a winning team and get a title, which they weren't even able to do the first year, even though everyone felt like they should have. It's the same thing in the kitchen. As a chef, you're the coach, and you really have a responsibility of getting people where they're strongest and building a team. Because sometimes you can bring in all the talent in the world, and end up with a bunch of individuals that all have their kind of own agendas and can be insubordinate because maybe they're a little diva-ish because they are talented. Right. And sometimes, I say it all the time that probably one of the harder parts of being a chef is corralling all of that and channeling it properly and getting the best out of these talented guys. and still at the same time earning and maintaining their respect. You know what I mean? And leading them.
Yeah.
You know, because I feel like at the end of the day, that's where your key is you got to lead them. You know what I mean? And they got to feel like you lead them, and you do that by sometimes working right alongside them.
Yeah.
You know, I think sometimes we get disconnected from our chefs, or as chefs we become disconnected from our guys because we spend a lot of time in the office, or we walk around with a clipboard, and we just kind of lose touch with that fire of being on the line.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
which I feel very fortunate where I'm at now. I cook every night.
Yeah.
You know, I work a station every single night, and I feel like that keeps my brain fresh to relate to these guys.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, I'm one of them. In that moment, I'm just another dude with a saute pan in front of me. You know, I mean, there may be situations where you got to step up and be the chef, but for the most part, we're all just cooks at that time.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've never been the type of chef or person in general to walk around my chest puffed out. Hey, I'm the chef, and I even make a point now on my chef coat to not put chef on there.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, if someone told me that, you should be able to walk in the kitchen and tell who the chef is without whatever it says on their coat. Mm-hmm. You know, so I try to pull that off while still being on the trenches with these guys.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel it works out pretty well for me. But moving forward, I feel like the biggest realizations I ever made that made me the difference from a cook to a chef is, it's that teaching, that learning process. Yeah. You know, it being on both sides of it.
Right.
You know, it's one thing to hold a certain amount of knowledge as a cook or chef. It's another thing to be able to share that with someone else and do it in a. I mean, we're talking about tacos the other day, and I've been thinking of this taco or whatnot, and it's another thing I talk about. Writing down a recipe. Mm-hmm. You know, if it's your own recipe, 100%, and it's never been written down before, to write one down and have it be accurate, people have no idea how difficult that can be. You know, and once again, keeping in mind that when you write a recipe and put something on a menu, you're not going to be the dude making it a lot of times. So that's really important to know how to do that and do it well. You know, and
not have 40 ingredients in one recipe.
And do it on your.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, you know, and keeping or put a lot of the work on the prep side of things. You know what I mean? So that during service, it's still an easy execution, and you can. Someone on the skill level that you're paying at,
exactly.
You know, which is another significant thing, can do it and can do it consistently. You know, because that's what we're all doing. Yeah, man.
One of the so when I was in San Diego and I opened up this, I helped open up Cloak and Pedal out there. Yeah. It's kind of higher end Japanese social dining was the concept. Sure. But yeah, we were a brand new restaurant. We had a chef with a lot of Japanese experience. You had me. But now we got to build a team. But during trying to bring people in, we're still remodeling the restaurant, so we didn't have anything really to show them. So that was a really hard part for us to kind of find the elements of the team when we're trying to just have them buy in to something that they don't even know what's going on. It's not like we had a restaurant that was already completed. And they're like, oh my God, and then we didn't even have the menu laid out, and but not only that, the level of the food that we were doing was highly elevated. The chef that I was working alongside, Trace Jerome, by the way, shout out to him, amazing chef with a lot of Japanese knowledge and a lot of respect for Japanese cuisine, and somebody who I still hold in high regards to his cooking. But it was all about fine detail, a lot of intricate knife work, and he's one of those guys who would no, it's not good enough. That's makanai. That's for family meal. We can't use that for service. It's dude, that's the best that they can do. Because they're base level culinary kids. And some of these guys who just couldn't hold a job. So without those building stages of that restaurant were super tough. Just trying to get people who can not only I had to work with the chef to have him dumb down the cuisine a little bit, which he was not happy about. Yeah. But it was what is the reality of what we can do with what we have right now, with our resources. Sure. We will build up to that, but we need to just get some money generating right now, and yeah.
Well, and I think that's significant in that, once again, when we're talking about food and just how we get it to people, a lot of what goes on in that process is lost. And we watch TV, and not just the Food Network, just the way food is portrayed, the way chefs are portrayed, the way the restaurant industry is portrayed. It's it's the pressed clean white coats, it's shiny kitchens, and they're You know, they're not even dirty, man. You know, I think we forget that you know, there's a process all the way from growing and raising animals to how we cook it in kitchens and how it gets to your plate.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and I think you know, it's once again, even with like the cooks that we bring in our kitchens, you know, people just have a wrong idea of how that all works. And we, you know, it's everybody from the people that open up restaurants to the people that work in them to the people that eat in them, or just kind of forget or lose the real reality of what, you know, once again, what we can and can't do.
Absolutely.
You know, I think farm to table concepts, fine dining, true fine dining. You know, I mean, you're working at just a little place and you got to make food costs. It's like you need to do a little more than the center cut of the tenderloin, bro. You know what I mean? Like you only get 4 of those. You need to get like 9, dude. And they're not gonna all be like 2 center cuts. So don't put that on your menu. No one else is impressed that you're doing that.
Right.
You know, and you got to realize those sorts of things as a chef. As a diner, you got to realize that, you know, if I want that experience of eating at Grand Atkins's restaurant, I need to go to Grand Atkins's restaurant. You know, because you're gonna pay for it, right? You're gonna pay for everything from a reservation to an extraordinary amount of money for just, you're not just paying for ingredients that go into it, you're paying for an experience, you're paying for the name of the dude that is on the menu, you're paying for all of those things.
The brand.
Yeah, you know, and so here in Albuquerque,
he's probably not even there.
So you know, here in Albuquerque, you have to temper that a bit, and it's hard, you know, because I think people see these things and they want that, you know, and so I feel like us chefs in Albuquerque we have to find a way to bring the most elevated cuisine we can and do it in the most realistic way we can. Absolutely. You know, and it's hard, you know, because we all have our hopes and dreams, right? And then we all have what's really going on, and then we have the people that are coming and eating in our restaurant, you know, and I think at the end of the day, sometimes we forget that those are the only people you got to make happy, man. Exactly. You know, as important as those chef relationships are that we build and those sort of networks that come, they don't pay your bills. Yeah. You know, and sometimes it's hard to even get them to come into your restaurant because they're always at theirs. Yeah. You know, and so they're literally not paying your bills. Yeah. And I think sometimes, you know, we forget that why we do what we do. Right. You know, and that just once again I feel like there's still an opportunity for someone to kind of give a more, you know, and like this, give people a better insight in how things really do go, and not scare them. Yeah, you know, maybe not quite all the way to Anthony Bourdain Kids Confidential stuff. You know, but a little bit more of but like, that stuff does exist. Yeah, it's not necessarily Bradley Cooper in Burnt. But it's not every place is like the guy from Swatting Flies either. Right. Yeah. You know, and I think as chefs, we all kind of just have this social responsibility. Educate people and be available to the public and take part in these events and listen to Dom's podcast and show up to just any and everything having to do with chefs and get to know them on a level. Yeah, we gotta touch people in the community and break down exactly what the podcast is about, man. Just breaking down those walls between us or whatever, and that, you know, we are approachable people, and that if you have a question, just ask us. You know, like we'll tell you anything that you want to know. Speaking of chef movies, what's your favorite chef movie? Favorite chef movie? If I gotta be honest, my favorite chef movie is Ratatouille, man. I feel like one of the bigger things about that movie is you know, people forget it's on point. Like Thomas Keller was the culinary consultant for all that stuff. So they, you know, they're talking about real things. They're executing proper stuff, and I just feel like it's about the food, that movie. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's kind of the elephant in the room, a rat, which is just the absolute, not supposed to exist anywhere near a kitchen, is not only in a kitchen, but he's thriving and he's the chef, right? Just totally glitch in the matrix of the culinary world, right? You know, and so with that being the case, I feel like it takes all the focus away from him, and it's about the food, and somehow you get all you get from this rat is just love. You know, you just see how he just puts love in the food, and he's able to even like direct that doofus into because it's so strong, you know, and you just, even through an animated film, you're able to just pick up the love that's involved in food. And dude, I say it all the time. I know it's cliche. I know it's cheesy, but the most important ingredient of food is love, bro.
And what I say it all the time. I say it 10,000 times a day too. Customers, oh my God, this is made. What do you? It's honestly, it's the love. It's that extra care of just like you said that your grandfather was your influence. And my grandmother was mine, and like she just had like watching her in the kitchen, you're like, she's moving slow. Like, how is this ever gonna get done? But she makes confident movements without mistakes, and she keeps moving forward. And everything gets done on time, and it's all perfect. And it's she just knew. Like it's just that experience of doing it over and over again, and then doing it wrong and constantly improving. Like she's made tortillas a million times, but each time she tries to make them better and better. And it's so important. How would you translate what putting love in the food is?
I mean, it's it's almost even hard to put into words. It's to me, it's why as a chef, I feel like having worked in some kitchens. Sometimes chefs hold their hand real close. You know what I mean? They don't even share some recipes. Kind of keep certain amounts of their knowledge locked away from people. And a lot of times it's recipes and things. And I feel like that's always done out of fear. That someone else is going to either replicate or possibly even do what they do better than them. Maybe. I'm not like that, so I don't necessarily know exactly what that feels like. But that's what I feel like it's like. Whereas me, I'm never scared to share a recipe with anybody because, I feel like they're not going to put the same love into my thing I created as I do. So here, knock yourself out. I even did it with this exact cast iron pan. Here, you can even borrow it. And you're not going to touch that steak the way I'm going to. You don't season it, look at it the way I do. You don't pull it off exactly the same time I do. You don't rest it for the same amount of time I do. You don't have my palate. You didn't put the salt to pepper ratio the same. I don't know. Lots of different things that it's brought out through passion and love, and it's not written down anywhere in the recipe. And I think that truly on just a cooking level is what separates a lot of us. Some of us are just really robotic, and some of us are just these walking encyclopedias that can just throw things together and know all these recipes and things. But some of us can just kind of feel our way through a dish, and we do it intuitively and with our heart. For lack of a better way to put it, bro. And that's I feel like that's what I do.
That's awesome, man. That's really beautiful. Music in your kitchen. You guys listen to music while you're cooking?
I do, man. Man. And it's funny too because I look at a lot of different music. Big thing, huge thing. I really love music. We listen to a lot of music in the kitchen. And sometimes I feel like you don't necessarily want to listen to music that you like too much while you're working, right? You just want it to be like kind of like a background music. You don't want to be like having to focus on 30 steaks and you're like, oh man, there's that new watch. Hold on, have you guys heard this one yet? And so I kind of like for just working to just be able to hear someone else's music from afar. And a lot of times it doesn't matter what that music is, but when it comes to like prepping, breaking down, then it gets kind of serious. And I'm kind of weird, bro, but I listen to like Mariah Carey or like Daughtry or something weird and like Fleetwood Mac, but then like like Nipsey Hussle and like Mac Miller or it's more relevant, newer stuff too, and it's just all kind of a feeling and a vibe, bro. Like, and it's weird stuff because I know, like, you turn something on, you're like, hey, why would you eat? What did you put that on for? And it's just like, I don't know, dude. It's just, I don't know,
just screw with it.
And I always tell people that they've never really truly worked with me unless they put out like a Friday night rush to some Janet Jackson. And people that work with me will attest to that. It's not even something I'm necessarily bragging about. I got a very eclectic range of music that we listen to, but it's really a thing. And I agree that music can in some ways be distracting. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's got to always be something you take a temperature of. You know what I mean? Sometimes you easily get carried away. Conversations start getting away, and you're not getting your work done. But overall, I also feel like music creates a very productive and comfortable, free-flowing environment that people, that cooks especially thrive in. Myself included. I don't know.
No, you're absolutely right. in the kitchen, like we always would jam out to music when we prepped at Cloak and Pedal, and all the restaurants that I work at. We always would have our playlist. But then during service, we'd shut it off.
Sure, right.
Shut it off, and we would just focus on, there's a lot of stuff being called, especially the setup that we had where we had a pass and we had an expoing to all the different stations. Give me this, give me this. And so, music can clutter all that. And, if there's incomplete silence or that, it breaks down the communication and the whole night, it's a slow on building train wreck, But absolutely, I feel the same about music. Like, I just love it all. Like it doesn't matter, just whatever you're feeling for that day.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for something new, to play. Anybody who knows me, send me some new music. I'm always looking for something new. During service over here, I enjoy that. I get to listen to like some lowrider oldies, and some funk. I think I don't know. I was thinking about it the other day, and especially when I was watching Mark Quinones's video and how him and salsa music, and just watching his movement and flow, it kind of makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
It makes sense.
Literally dancing while he was making the
And for me, like funk is like it's instinctual. It's impulsive. It's not. There's it's just kind of like do 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 do. It's like whatever you're feeling, and that's kind of like how my movements are in the kitchen too, because there is no perfect. You don't know how the orders are going to come in when they come in.
Choreography.
Yeah. So you just kind of go with the flow and whatever comes, And so funk music kind of ties into that.
Well, I mean, shoot, even when you're jamming on the line, and especially when you're jamming with another guy, they call it dancing. You know what I mean? You're spinning around each other's back. And it could be, for lack of a better way to put it, a little intimate sometimes, right? But it's music can facilitate a lot of that, like just smooth, where it kind of looks like a choreographed dance.
Oh yeah,
honest to God, and cooking is a lot of like. I mean, I think people truly underestimate the amount of mental and physical ability that goes into cooking. Absolutely. I mean, it's a you have all this focus going on, and while at the same time you're bending down constantly, you're lifting things, you're reaching around stuff, and all this almost acrobatic stuff, dude. And at the end of the night, you're truly spent, in every meaning of the word. Sometimes I get home and I just sit there and. Other people can't process. I just sit there, man. They're like, what are you doing? Nothing. I'm enjoying doing nothing. Because I haven't been able to do nothing all day. I'm just doing nothing.
Stop talking.
Yeah, and I feel like that sort of decompression is typical of like people that do what we do, man. Because it's very taxing in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. Yeah, I put it as as soon as I sit down, I'm done. Like once I sit down,
man.
I'm done.
It's like something turns out, and then I also remember that I didn't eat all day.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man. Then you go and you get a burrito or whatever. Do you cook for yourself at home?
I do. I feel like I tell people the reason why I cook is you're meeting basic human need when you feed someone. You know what I mean? And in cooking, you're able to make that pleasurable, right?
Yeah.
That's my reward. I feel like that's the most rewarding part of cooking.
Absolutely.
And so in doing that, cooking for people you care about or that you love is like tenfold.
Yeah.
And so cooking for my family, my kids is especially when they like it. I got a son who's super picky, I mean, my daughter, not quite as much, but and so when you get a little kid to appreciate a recipe that you made, it feels great, and so I do cook at home. But during the work week, I don't eat at work, man. Yeah. And that I call it like a disease where I don't know if it's just sensory fatigue from the same sights and smells and just visuals of the same thing over and over that kind of turn you off to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But boy, the second I walk out the door and get home, I'm like, man, why didn't I eat at work? And I look in the pantry and there's only ramen noodles. And
so. Speaking of your restaurant, I love your plate ups. Like you have just such a beautiful way of plating. I see a lot of like almost like arcing, of how you plate around the rim of a plate almost maybe.
Sure.
And then your intricate placings of ingredients. Where do you get most of your inspiration for your plate?
I feel like a lot of my biggest inspirations are subconscious ones because I have trouble answering those questions.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you anyone that I well, definitely know what I'm trying to mimic at all. But in terms of like who inspires me, it's hard to really name anyone specifically. But I do know, and it's the value of social media. I look at everybody's stuff. Yeah. If you post it, I see it. Yeah. And I think I take in all of it. Yeah. Off the top of my head, I know I've always paid attention to things that like Mark Quinones does. Yeah. I pay attention to things that Raphael doing, even out in Utah, still follow him on Instagram. I pay attention to things you do. Right. I pay attention to things Raul does. I pay attention to things Martin Torres does. I pay attention to things Sean Staggs is doing over at Ben Sure, Mike White, everybody. Yeah. And so I'm sure I take some influence from all of it. Yeah, yeah. And I never feel bad about that because I feel like at the end of the day, it's what we all are all doing anyways. No, my best ideas, or what I thought were my best ideas, aren't even my own ideas, man. Yeah.
But they're like Frankensteins of like all these different elements. So that's
I hope no one's offended if any of my plates ever inadvertently look like theirs. Whereas like I'm not offended if someone, I feel like they're taking cues of my style either. Mm-hmm. I feel like I feel good about at this point in my path that I do have somewhat of a style. Yeah, yeah. I think I like putting emotions on plates. I think it adds an element that I don't see in a lot of entrees. Yeah. It's that, we have our standards of like protein, starch, vegetable sauce, and I feel like that's always a standard for how we build our plates. And sometimes something in between those, which I feel like emotions do for me, is something that kind of creates another element of the dish that makes it all flow a little better. And I feel like that's a part of my style.
Yeah, not only visually, but the way it sits on your tongue.
Yes, absolutely. And I did at one point in my life before I actually started going to school for other stuff. I wanted to be an artist. Yeah. I feel like cooking is channeling all that exact same creativity, right? And I feel like it's twofold. It's what you put on a plate, and it's the flavors. And the flavors are its own canvas, and you're putting the strokes and all that stuff the exact same way as you are on a plate. Right. I feel blessed to have understood that it is the same kind of creativity, and I don't have to like be some kind of starving artist or wait for inspiration all the time, because we have service, we have our menus to rely on, and when we get a great idea for a special or a new menu idea, we can let those things happen naturally. We don't have to like force it. No, as opposed to, I've had neighbors that were artists before. He just like, man, I don't pay my rent in months. I can't think of anything to sculpt. Yeah. And I'm like, damn, that sucks. and that sort of thing actually really, really turned me off for being an artist, because I felt like I'm that dude that would just probably starve to death. Right. With that sort of how to make money. So I feel like when we're cooking, that's what we're doing, is we're creating art too.
No, absolutely. And there's some sort of I remember seeing this like documentary or this video about Buddhism, and when they create art, like they take all this time to move this sand, this colored sand, into this large art piece, and then once they're done, they just wipe it all clean. Right. And it's about the not holding on. It's about learning to not hold on, to have attachment to something, and accepting of letting things go. That's really beautiful. And I think that's something that chefs don't. That chefs got to understand, is that's beautiful. You don't have to pull out the camera and take a picture of it. Just that moment that you're looking at it and you're like, wow, that's amazing. What's one of the last things that you made where you like wowed yourself, where you're just like, holy shit,
Shoot, the last thing I made that I was really happy with, I feel like sometimes for me it's not necessarily a specific version of a dish so much as like when I feel like I really nailed a menu item. Yeah. So for me personally, I like my pork dish at work. Yeah. It's probably not even my in terms of like skilled dish I've ever pulled off. Nowhere near my most creative dish I've ever pulled off, but I feel like it represents me very well. Yeah. I feel like it represents my menu very well. I think it's an example of what I do very well. Right. It's a little bit of like New Mexico's stuff going on with like green chili and the applesauce and black beans and calabasitas and pork. Mm-hmm. But it's it's a take on some things. I do like a succotash with the black beans. The pork, I put a real aggressive marinade, similar to what I want to do with the taco. Right. With like some smoked paprika and some heavy like Latin flavors. the green chili applesauce, I feel like plays on the classic pork and apples pairing. You know, the green chili is the New Mexico. Yes, we force it into everything because it's a versatile enough ingredient to do it, man. Like,
it's
I think that's people come out here and they look at like our chili as a novelty.
Yeah.
And in some sense, I guess it is, but I feel like that completely discounts the fact that it's a versatile ingredient.
It is the only thing that you can literally smother the entire plate in. Yeah. Whatever is underneath that blanket of chili is going to be good.
Well, and you make a sauce, you chop it. I've had green chili ice cream that I thought was fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, green chili sauce, the versatility of it. But yeah, I plug it in there too. And I do it with no shame at all, man.
Yeah.
I think it's important to be a chef in New Mexico and to embrace what it is we bring to the table nationally on a culinary level. And it's chili, man. Like, it's New Mexican cuisine. We're fortunate to live in a state that has its own cuisine.
Yeah.
You know, and I think as culinary professionals, we should feature that and embrace it.
I think you're absolutely right. So me and my sushi buddies in San Diego, we were working at Sushi on the Rock, and we had this nightly thing that we would do. We called it car bar. Because we all parked downstairs at the garage or whatever, and so after work, somebody would bring some beers, and we have them on ice, and so we have all of our late night conversations just down in the parking garage, just drinking beers. But so we would like brainstorm, like not even knowing it. And this one time we brainstormed the idea of, there's a California roll, there's a Philadelphia roll, but then there's all these other states or whatever that don't have like their own rolls. So let's do 50 for 50, I remember we called it. And we did a sushi roll inspired by each state. And we just, like, the easiest way was just to do it in alphabetical order.
Sure.
And we did one for every day. So it was like, okay, we sold, first one I think was like Arkansas or something like that. And we did, I think they were known for like fair food or something like that. So we did like a jelly, kind of like a play on like a fried, like funnel cake, kind of smoked salmon, cream cheese, fried it, but then we topped it with like powdered sugar and like some sort of like jam or whatever. But we took the vessel of sushi and we just translated it to every style of cuisine, like a regional. But Oklahoma, I remember this one in particular because Oklahoma, like you were saying, like New Mexico has its own like culture and style. Sure. Oklahoma, their type of cuisine, they're known for like the full meal. They're just known like a plate full of food or whatever. Like I think of like Thanksgiving dinner. So that was like a really hard one to create. But in Japanese, they have a futomaki, which is a giant roll, and they literally like put everything in there. So you got like some spinach, you got egg, you got some dried fish here, you got this or whatever. And it comes out and it looks like you would have a Thanksgiving meal of all these separate little side dishes. But I thought that was really funny that Oklahoma, like that's what they're known for, just a full plate.
Well, and you see the New Mexico roll. I mean, every spot that I go around town, you get the tempura green chili pot in there.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it is what it is. Not that there's not a spot for, some of your more other types of ethnic cuisine in town, or just your comfort food or that sort of thing. But there needs to be a showcase for our native cuisine here, and I feel like the chefs that are making names for themselves and really making moves even nationally are the chefs that understand that, and I feel like the guys that have done those things are those chefs.
Absolutely.
You look at Fernando Ruiz, who just beat Bobby Flay, and the guy's killing it, and he does that style of food, man. He my understanding of his food is he implements just a lot of New Mexican elements and things people are familiar with.
That's awesome. And I mean that's really what it comes down to. You want to bring an emotion out of somebody, when they eat, and you like I know that some chefs have a lot of passion or whatever when they write their menus. It's like the customer can't translate it, like they don't know what any of this element is, and if you're in too big of a restaurant where you're not able to educate the customer right there yourself, like for myself, I have a pretty extensive menu of tacos or whatever, and this is people's first time eating Korean food or eating Vietnamese food. Like they don't know like these flavors, but then I'm able to be right there and tell them the story of what it is and what they're looking for, and like a lot of but so I'm blessed in having it like that. But yeah, I think that's very important. Is the customer has to be familiar with it. There was one restaurant in San Diego, Juniper and Ivy, and their whole concept is to take old kind of like meals like Hot Pockets or stuff that you grew up on, lasagna or fried rice or whatever, and they put a twist on it. They put their own twist on it. They elevate the cuisine. So.
Well, I think it's a matter of like verbiage.
Yeah.
You being able to explain all the different types of tacos you have and the knowledge you possess and being able to execute them properly, right? Or even traditionally is already going a ways with the guest, even in terms of their palate. Yeah. It's like the eye eats before the stomach type deal. The guest trusts the knowledgeable chef. Absolutely. And so as opposed to just walking in here and see like 500 tacos on the wall, and like, who's this guy? Yeah. What's he know about a good Korean taco? Who is it? And then they meet you, find out about your background, and like, oh man, I bet this guy actually makes a bomb Korean taco. I'll take 2 of them. Yeah. And I feel like that's a little bit of like what you got going on is you're very personable. I feel like even when you do the social media spots or whatever, you just seem like a dude that you've known for a long time. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that happens a little bit on social media anyways. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you can sort of develop a relationship with someone that you've never even met in person before, and that's kind of like you. I felt like I knew you, and I had never even met you in person before.
Yeah, I think I was just telling Rodney and Valerie, like, the first time I think we met was just the other night over there at the food fight. But we had talked, and we knew each other on social media and stuff like that, and it was just out of that mutual respect of just seeing what you're doing, and just kind of that unspoken that we like, this guy gets it. This guy gets it.
And you could create that with the guests, too. You know what I mean? Where, man, you know what? I see this chef. He's always cooking, and he's just talking. God, I just feel like this dude's cool. I want to go eat his food. He, everything he makes looks good. And people forget that you want to do that because these people come in and eat your food. They're paying for it too, and they're supporting you, and they're that's real support. Absolutely. Because sometimes the social media thing, being able to take a pretty picture of something that you may even spent all day on, and that's not necessarily food you're selling in your restaurant even. And you create this sort of following of likes and this digital support, right? That at the end of the day doesn't pay your bills either. Exactly. You got to be able to generate an actual support system of people that come in and support you through eating your food, which means they're grabbing a menu, they're sitting down and they're paying for it, and they're tipping the server too, and all that's support. Yeah. And I feel like what you do does well and generate that, because you had your thing going on previously, and I felt you were a pioneer in doing it. Your taco truck was for just being a cook, right, and someone that wasn't necessarily on the food truck scene at all, right, but knew some of those. I knew darn well what your place was, where it was at, and I knew Raul was even working with you and this and that, and and for you to be able to leave town like you did, come back and almost pick right back up without even missing a beat says something. People are like, oh man, it's not only are good tacos back in town, Dominic's back in town. And so that sort of stuff matters. I feel like the chefs that understand, I say, all these other things outside of just food. And connecting with the community, like how Mike White does. Putting us on the map, like how Chef Mark Quinones does. Chef Fernando Ruiz. These Mark was on featured in Forbes magazine. That's crazy, dude. We're just we've got some chefs doing some really big things here, and I feel like they're representing us well. And those ones that are, it's because they understand these things. Absolutely. That there's I think I even read something that Albuquerque is one of the cities that has the most restaurants per capita in the entire country. No way. Really? Yeah, and the way I look at that is like, in general as a chef. Another guy told me it's hard to get any sort of recognition. There's a lot of us. We all do a rendition of the same thing. You know what I mean? And so, it's hard to shine at all. And so those of us that do, these guys that do, it's important to support them.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Not to hate.
Put themselves out there, it's like sometimes if I'm doing some sort of thing, outside of my restaurant, sometimes you have to pitch that to ownership, right? Because you're not I don't own the restaurant I work at. You know what I mean? So it's not, I'm an ambassador to their brand. It's not mine. So sometimes, I don't want them ever feeling like I'm trying to outrun them or whatnot, and so sometimes, they anything that I have to get them to understand, anything that's good for me is automatically residually good for them. Right. And so when we're talking about the chefs community, if any of us are shining, we're all shining. Absolutely. So why hate on that? Yeah. Or or try to, figure out what it is that, how did they do that? I want a piece of that. Yeah, let him do his thing, man. And you do your own thing, and there's enough for us to all eat.
Exactly.
Just like there's so many restaurants in town, there's enough people here for them to all stay open.
Exactly. And we're just trying to, the best thing that we can do is to elevate all of our levels, so that way we're just putting out higher quality product to these people.
Sure.
And slowly showing them more and more about what is, that there is more stuff to put red and green chili on.
Yeah.
There's so much more stuff that we can put red and green chili all over.
It's that whole stigma thing of, people hear about red and green chili and they automatically just think of the, your New Mexican restaurants that are, straight up New Mexican restaurants. Yeah, you get burritos and enchiladas and smothered and stuff and cheese melted on it. And that's how these ingredients have manifested themselves traditionally over the years. And there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean we can't take those same flavors and ingredients and implement them into more elevated cuisine without it being a puddle of chili on a plate with cheese smothered on it. And I can't stress that enough, how important I feel like it is for people to kind of start connecting those dots a little more and start going out to these places that are trying to do that sort of artisan New Mexican, New American food and because I feel like in doing that really is how we're, for chefs as a community, how we're going to be recognized the most.
Absolutely. Shoot, man, I think we could talk for days and stuff, man. You're a very passionate dude, a very cool dude, a very, you're very knowledgeable and experienced, and I got so much respect for you. Let's go into the lightning round. If that's cool with you.
Sure.
And then we'll get into the kitchen. We'll talk about the taco that you're gonna make.
All right.
But so the lightning round, I just like to ask a couple just random questions, just to help us get to know you a little bit more, and just answer them with the first thing that comes to mind. How about worst kitchen nightmare?
Worst kitchen nightmare. The one I always talk about it was when I was at the Artichoke Cafe. We 12 reservations on the books, I remember specifically. And we actually, I think it was like a Tuesday, Wednesday. Those wild card nights though.
Yeah.
And I think we had 12 people on the books, and we had a party of 50 coming in. Sort of lay happy hour deal right before service, right? 50 people. When they were all coming into the bar for just drinks, right? Because it was I think there was a Pope Joy something going on even. And lo and behold, they show up, and all of a sudden every single one of them starts ordering dinner, man. And they had actually all been told that they were gonna get dinner. So it just started a 12 cover night with a 50 top.
Oh.
And to me, those last 20 minutes of prepping before service are the most precious. Like I get more done in those 20 minutes probably than the rest of the entire day.
Yeah.
And it happened like 30 minutes before service, when you're just trying to sew those last odds and ends and just bang, 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 bang. Whoa, what the? And it didn't stop, man.
Oh, yeah.
Like we ended up being busy on top of that, and it's just one of those nights where you just literally like, can we stop? Can I just throw a white towel in? I'll give them their money back. You can take it out of my check. I can't do this.
Close the doors. Oh yeah.
I'm hosed. I can't even believe like this.
Yeah, I've told them, stop taking orders. We cannot do anything.
There's no one leaving happy right now. Come on.
let's just wipe this one clean. We'll start again tomorrow.
Reset button. But and have I had worse shifts than that? Possibly, but that is far and away the one that stands out the most.
Oh, man. I can feel that for sure. What's your favorite piece of kitchen equipment?
My favorite piece of kitchen equipment, I like the immersion blenders, the little ones.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a food processor on a stick, man. You make magic happen with that little one, and I use it a lot for everything. So
I like that. What's the funniest complaint you ever received from a guest?
Oh man. I mean, I almost don't know if there's such thing as a funny complaint, but there's ones that make you laugh in a really maniacal way, I guess.
Yeah.
I think it was when I was at Bienshire, a lady complained about the temperature of her water.
Okay.
And adamantly so, like made a big stink about how the water was too cold.
Yeah.
And at the time, that was literally the most crazy thing I'd ever heard in my life. Come to find out, because I couldn't let it go. I was like, what do you... Has anyone else in the world ever complained about temperature? Come to find out that some people prefer room temperature water. It's a thing, and some of your more upscale restaurants. But at the time, I was like,
Yeah.
Because you know, sometimes as a cook, you kind of just feel like there are these groups of people or individual people that are they set out to do those sorts of things. You know, the guy that sits at the head of the table, is your salmon farmed or wild?
Yeah.
You know, and they're there to make us stink in some way, shape, or form. They're there to get attention somehow, and even if it's negative, and they say those sorts of things. In my opinion, you know,
this water is too cold.
Yeah.
It's hurting my teeth. Okay, so you go to a New Mexican restaurant. What do you order? What you go to?
Restaurant in general, I always try to get something I feel like I can't get anywhere else.
Okay.
You know, or that I don't make at home often, or can't, or don't have the means to. New Mexico restaurant, that's not always the case, but I like carne adobada a lot. I think that's usually the one I like to.
Like a carne adobada burrito, carne adobada plate.
If they have a straight up carne adobada plate, my favorite in the day was from the Horseman's Haven Cafe in Santa Fe. They had a carne adobada plate with greasy potatoes and like some flat top fried eggs. So I kind of chase after that everywhere I go for New Mexican food.
What would be your last meal?
Oh man, I was thinking about that one. You know, last meal, I feel like, you know, and this is maybe just me overthinking it. You know, I feel like part of you wants to go for the most gluttonous thing you could think of. You know, like a big, huge steak and loaded potato, or just mashed potatoes and ribs and you know. But I feel like the most appropriate meal would be like bread and water, something just to make you just understand the mortality of like what's about to go down.
Wow.
Like these are the only things you ever really needed to not be dead like you're gonna be in an hour. You know, like kind of just. I feel it would be that simple of a meal would give you that last bit of perspective.
Okay.
That maybe you need.
Man.
You know.
That's
overthought it.
That's some intense thing.
Because I wanted to just say pizza or something.
I like that. Wow, man. Shoot, everybody go home and think about that one. Write a report on that. Okay. So, you know, part of what we do here is, you know, we're going to go into the kitchen. We're going to make a taco that represents you, you know. Do you know what you're going to be making?
Yeah, I think, well, I was talking about my pork dish I like a lot. I do this really specific rub with pork that I feel like, it's a winner, man. It's got smokiness. It's got a little spice, and just a little. It finishes off a little sweet. It's real even, and it's aggressive.
Okay.
And I partly derived that from the inability of being able to get a particular piece of pork I had on the grill, so I wanted some smokiness.
Nice.
But yeah, it's just something that ended up working, and it almost actually even cures the meat, as aggressive as it is, to where you know I get away with using it on a lot of like junkier pork cuts. Which I feel like is just kind of representative of me. If I'm always that guy that I'm a rough rider on the line. You know, I kind of get by with, you know, oh, you forgot your chef knife. Here, use mine. I'll just use a steak knife all night. And I almost get off on it, you know. And so I feel like pork represents me well because it's just a grimy animal, you know. Pigs are just filthy pigs. And I even I affectionately kind of like berate my cook sometimes and call him a pig. You know, just when we're messing around. Pig. God, he's just messing. You know, and so I feel like pork it represents me pretty well. The taco itself, I know I told you about like flour tortillas. It's not so much. I like flour tortillas better myself, and I think like I'm just kind of a little bit of an unconventional weirdo in a sense. In terms of the whole culinary scene, I feel like I'm a tall, lanky guy that doesn't really look like he knows what he's doing all the time.
That's exactly what I said when I was like, they're like, is that the guy? I was like, no, he's tall, lanky, tall, lanky guy.
You know, and you know, just a little unconventional in my methods because so many of them I've just learned through trial and error on my own. You know, so I feel like a flour kind of a little bit it's not outside of the box, but you know, it's not your classic street taco.
Okay.
You know. And then also just with a little bit of, I want to put some avocado crema in there. I think, I remember Mark Quinones probably made the best fish taco I'd ever had.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things he threw on there was just a straight up creme fraiche. Like pure crema, made it and everything, you know, and it was good. And so I felt like that became ingrained in my head as a mandatory for like a really good taco is some sort of like creamy, sour cream element.
Yeah.
And then pickled onions. I do a pickled onions with a red onion and just equal parts simple syrup and rice wine vinegar.
Okay.
And all it does is it just takes the edge off the onion.
Yeah.
It makes it real bright and vibrant, but you still get that like
a little bit of heat.
Yeah, like little bit of heat, and then it keeps the onion still crispy. So you get the little snap of it.
Yeah.
And then a little.
Plus, it got to like once those onions bleed, you got like that beautiful.
And then the vibrance. Yeah, the colors are outstanding. Yeah. And then just a little bit of cilantro, and I think keeping it pretty simple, but at the same time, I don't get all the way outside of the box with everything. I feel like I find my spot kind of in the corner of the box, but I'm not trying to be so different. I'm not trying to be weird or I want to. I tell guys all the time, like, I'm not a food innovator. I just want to make good food. Yeah. And so getting an opportunity to make a taco in your spot where you already make really good taco. I just want to make a good taco. Yeah, I feel like working with pork. I mean, shoot, the other day, I have someone text me like, man, how come all you ever post is pork and duck? And it's like, man, that's what I have, dude. And so I end up working with pork a lot too. So that's another reason why I chose it. Overall, I feel like the taco just represents me because it's a little bit different, but it's good. Awesome. And I think that's the chef I am. Is I'm a little bit different. I'm a little bit unconventional, but I think I'm a pretty good chef overall.
I think that's awesome, man. That's a perfect way to wrap it up right there, man. Of your signature on food is just not trying to push outside the box, just making good food at the end of the day. That's the most important thing that I think a lot of chefs, the artistic side of things or whatever, they forget. And you need just that good base foundation of skills, of knowing how, that's where, you learn through hard knocks, which took experience, tons and tons of doing it wrong and then having to redo it probably. And then somebody like me who went to culinary school and that's basically what they just gave me the list to start or whatever, like just do these things and you're going to make good food, and it was all simple. And then from there, I just started adding my own flavor to it, and started tweaking things or whatever. But once you know how to make good food, then it all pretty much is simple. But awesome, man. This has been a great talk, man. I've really enjoyed this, man. Thank you so much, brother. Let's get in the kitchen, man. Thank you so much, man. Cool. Go check out Tony at Indigo Crow. We're gonna get into the kitchen. Stay tuned on Facebook Live. We'll be checking in a little bit, and we'll be seeing what Tony comes up with. See ya.
Cool. Sweet.
How do you shut that thing on? Anything else? Oh, there we go.
Oh, charity.
Charity. Oh, yeah, we're going to talk about charity too. What charity? Do you know that?
Actually, I was looking at PB&J. I don't know if you're familiar.
No.
Local kind of kitchen in town that they feed less fortunate children.
Okay.
Yeah, so super cool place. I feel like they'd be good to support. Awesome. Feeding kids, man, always good stuff.
So if you're still listening, we're going to feature the taco sometime in the coming future at the restaurant, Dia de los Tacos. All proceeds from the sales of this taco will go straight to PB&J.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, PB&J charity. And we're going to continue doing this with a lot more chefs around town and just continuing to give back in as many ways as we can. So thank you all for listening. Signing off. Episode 3. Sweet.